Hey everyone, it's Steve with RightTurn.Media, and this is Podcasting 101, Video 1. And we're going to be covering today what is a podcast, why podcast, and who shouldn't and should consider podcasting. I'm going to be talking fast to try and keep this under 6 to 9 minutes max. And the reason is I recently found an article by Philip Guo, who's an assistant professor at computer science at the University of Rochester, and in it he was taking a look at the optimal video length for student engagement. And what he found is that after around 6 to 9 minutes the engagement starts to drop. And so I'm going to do my best to keep every single one of these videos under that 6 to 9 minute mark, around that 6 to 9 minute mark for that engagement. There's one, the hows, I'm definitely going to be going over because I'm going to be talking a lot about the equipment, but I'm going to try and go over it as quickly as possible because I understand your time is valuable and I want to try and make the maximum use of your time that I can. So what is a podcast? Well, dictionary.com has a definition. I just think it's an RSS feed with an on-demand nature that can be downloaded or streamed. The main key is that it's automatically downloaded with that RSS feed. So I have had a potential client who told me, yeah, we're podcasting, when it was really just audio files on his website. Sorry, bro. It's not a podcast. It's not live stream is not a podcast. The key is that RSS feed and that automatic nature. So why should you be considering podcasting? Well, millennials are abandoning blogs for podcasting for building their personal brands. If you Google this article, Forbes magazine, Google the title, the author, Forbes, any combination of that, you'll be able to find that article. It's fascinating. The kinds of stuff that he's talking about. I also believe in podcasting because of the personal connection that can happen. I believe with everything in me there is something fundamentally different between reading someone tell their story and hearing someone tell their story. NPR used to have many moons ago a podcast feed called Driveway Moments. What they found and what we found when I was working in nationally syndicated radio was that if someone was deeply engaged with what was being spoken, they would often sit in their car and listen to that story end. Driveway moments are huge when it comes to podcasting and audio, I believe. So some stats that you can go look up. Edison Research, one of the best organizations for finding any kind of podcasting stats. Their Infinite Dial 2017 study. I will be updating this with the 2018 numbers when they come out in a few weeks. But as of 2017, 67 million listen monthly. Americans, 42 million listen weekly. And of those weekly listeners, they average around 4 hours and 10 minutes a week, which means people are listening to podcasting more than just on their daily commute to work. They're listening to it while they're walking their dog, while they're out doing yard work, while they're working on their car, while they're cleaning the house. All those kinds of activities, they're listening to podcasts during that as well. And each of those categories, the monthly and weekly listeners, they're growing at about 20% a year. And one of the very cool things is that they found that podcasting listeners tend to be higher educated and they tend to earn more. And one of the other really cool stats is that they also tend to follow brands more on social media than non-podcast listeners, which tends to show that they're more open to advertising. So as people are ad blocking and DVRing and skipping ads, podcasting is one area that, even though with the Apple podcasting app, they can skip 15 seconds forward, they tend to listen to advertising more than a non-podcast listener. So who should not consider podcasting? Well, if you don't have a product or a service and have no plans of building a product or service, podcasting might not be for you. If you're doing it just to sell money and sell ads, or just for the money and then selling ads, it takes a long time to build the kind of listenership that will generate money from advertising. Podcasting may not be for you. If you have no passion about the subject, podcasting really shouldn't be something that you think about. Find a subject you're willing to talk about, then consider podcasting. And if you're someone who magically thinks that a podcast will bring you fans and customers. It takes a long time to build an audience often. And so it takes a lot of work. It does take work. It's a marathon. If you're someone that has a history of abandoning projects, I can't tell you. I think it's so embarrassing to look at a podcast and see someone that put 6 episodes up and they haven't put anything up more in 4 or 5 years. If you're going to be doing this, it's a marathon. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about is the kind of time commitment that you're going to need to put in and the kinds of work and effort. We've done a lot to try and help minimize that so that way you're batch recording and doing all kinds of stuff like that and making things very efficient. And I really don't think it takes a whole lot of time to get a good show done. But you're in it for the long haul when it comes to podcasting. If you're passionate about the subject and you're a verbal processor, which I'm going to get to in a second, you should definitely consider podcasting. If you have a product or a service, or products plural and services plural, definitely consider podcasting, especially if you are that verbal person. If you can go the long haul with projects, definitely consider podcasting. So this is video number 1, and coming up later this week, the what's, the how's, and final thoughts, including growing and monetizing. But tomorrow, where do I start? So thanks for tuning in, and I'll chat with you tomorrow. Be awesome.